The second drill on the quarterback throwing progression is called step hips throw. And I'm going to play the whole thing first so you can see it. And then we'll go back and I'll give you the commentary on the techniques that we would like to see the quarterback perform. So here he is. Here's how the drill is performed. And that's step hips throw. Okay. So what we would like to do is we need to first put him in a position where he can maximize his stance. And to do that, we need his feet right underneath his armpits, and it runs right through his hips. So we want those feet to be right underneath his armpits. This sets a good base that's not too wide for when he takes his step, because a too wide a step is not going to allow you to transfer your weight to your front foot, which is what we need him to do. So that's the posture that we want with his feet. We want his shoulders level, which levels his hips, and we want his head centered right over his body with his eyes looking straight ahead. And he's going to want to keep this posture the whole time that we do, and this balance the whole time that we do this drill. All right? So the first thing he's going to do is he's going to take a step. He does this on his own. There's no commands given. When he's comfortable and he's got a good position, he's going to step. So he's simply going to push off his back foot, the instep of his back foot. He's going to push off the instep of his back foot, and he's going to take a step forward. And once again, this should be a 6 to 8 inch step. So let's put a little mark where he starts and where his foot strike is. So he hits foot strike right here. So you see that this is a nice short step. You cannot start the throwing motion till your front foot hits, which is why we need this foot to be up and down quickly. The second thing is when we get to foot strike, this toe needs to be pointing straight out, straight to the target. If this toe was pointed, not pointed straight to the target, if it was turned in like this, it would block his hips out. So pointing the toe straight out allows these hips to be fully rotated toward the target when we get to release position. As you can see here, his hips are fully rotated because his toe is fully rotated. All right? A toe that's not fully rotated will cause his hips to decelerate as they're rotating the throw, which causes his arms to be decelerating. So we hit this foot strike. We hit the ball of our foot. It's critical that we keep this knee bent when we hit foot strike, because this knee bend allows our hips to rotate smoothly. Any unbending of the knee will cause our hips to decelerate. You'll see that his knee is going back and it's starting to unbend some. So we would ask him to keep that knee bent as he's rotating his hips. All right? So that knee needs to remain bent as he rotates. And that on foot strike. So once we hit foot strike, what you'll see happening with the upper body is you're going to see his hands separate. So as he starts to move forward, his hands separate from the football. And when this happens, we want this football to be held no lower than armpit height. We don't want this football to dip down and then have to make this big circle to get all the way to load position. We want that ball to just be pulled straight back. The other thing when we separate is we want this elbow to remain quiet. In other words, we don't want to have a big chicken wing. You see how when he separates, that elbow stays down and it's pretty much right over his thigh. We don't want this elbow to be pointing up or high. So because the higher you pull it up, the longer it takes to get to your chest, which is this position right here. When it's tucked right there, that's when you can start your elbow forward to accelerate. The longer it takes to get that position, the longer it takes to get the ball out. So as his hands separate, the ball stays armpit height, his elbow stays nice and quiet, and then the ball can get to this load position. This is load position right here, where the ball is right behind his head. Okay? The significance of this load position is that we want this hand and this ball to be right over his bicep. this loads the tricep up so it's fully extended. So as he turns around to throw, he'll be able to contract that tricep and use a tricep extension to throw. Okay? So we've got a nice quiet front arm. We've got the ball elbow armpit height. The ball is over, his hand is over his bicep, and then he's going to turn his hips and rotate so that his shoulders are facing the target. Okay? As he does this, what you'll see that his upper arm is laid off so it's parallel to the ground, and that's external rotation. And when you can get your arm parallel to the ground like that, that's going to give you the maximum distance to be able to accelerate his hand and generate arm and hand speed, okay? You'll also notice as this elbow starts to lead the throw now. So as he comes forward, notice that his elbow leads the throw right here. He's maintained good posture, good balance. He's still got a slight bend in his knee, which is going to contribute to his hips rotating full speed. His head is nice and stable, but that elbow leads the throw. When you get to this position, this looks identical to like if you were going to shoot a jump shot. And what we should see is the elbow leads, the left arm's tucked tight against his body, his head is nice and stable, his eyes are straight ahead, he has 2 feet on the ground. So this is what, the 2 feet on the ground is what gives him control of his release point, okay? Then the last part of this is he's simply going to take his hand, his elbow's pointing at the target, he's going to take his hand and do a tricep extension where he's going to pronate his hand and point his fingers at the target. And we know that when his elbow is parallel to the ground, that he has full extension and he's transferred all the energy from the back foot, which started the push against the ground, up through his hip, up through his side, through his shoulder, into his elbow, and all the way to the ball, which is in his hand. Okay? So that's the kind of full extension that you want to see. In terms of the follow-through, we just want him to stay tall and balanced, keep his posture, keep his head stable, and just let his arm finish wherever it's comfortable. Okay? One of the important things you want to watch for is to make sure that this left shoulder, you can't see that in the follow-through. If you do, then what's happening is his elbow is pulling him around, and that's going to affect his release position. So one last time, let's take a look at what step hips throw looks like. That's the second drill.